Yeah,
So is it Rotary and all them?
exactly. Service organizations, so we're gonna see a lot of the same players.
Right. Well, they said you don't have to attend them all, and plan on missing one, that might be the one.
It will be noted.
Right.
We have another substitute tonight.
Have you met Wells, Gary? No. It's Michael Bacon.
We've met before. It's my second run at standing in.
All right.
Top of the afternoon, sir.
All right.
Have you met Claude Baker?
Mr. Bacon, Wells Geary is standing in for your colleague here. I'm the alternate.
Good enough.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, let's get this hog wrestle under motion. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting, April 3rd, 2018 of the Chino Valley Planning and Zoning Commission. Could we have a pledge? Mr. Welker, will you lead us?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Armstrong,
Here.
Commissioner Walker,
Here.
Commissioner Bacon,
Here.
Commissioner Baker,
Here.
Commissioner McCaffrey,
Here.
Vice Chair Pasiak, and Chair Merritt,
Here.
and we are having Commissioner Geary
Thank
sit
you.
in for Vice Chair Pasiak.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move forward to item 4, consideration of possible action to approve the March 20th, 2018 special meeting minutes. Did everybody get a chance to review them? Anybody have any comments or questions? Any concerns? I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as published.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion is carried. Okay, moving on to item 5, staff reports. Morning, Jason, how you doing?
Good evening, Chair. Thank you. Doing well. How about yourself?
Good.
Great. And Commissioners, just a brief staff report on some kind of our current events. Last week, the UDO Rewrite Subcommittee met. Special thanks to Commissioner Bacon for also joining our committee as a non-voting member. We had a chance to go through what we call version 1 of the newly restructured more or less zoning ordinance plus subdivision regulations. And it was a interesting meeting. It's a lot of information to push through to talk about how we've restructured and formatted everything. We haven't started attacking content yet. That will be in the coming months. But we do have our baseline, if you will, document to start working from to rewrite our code. Second, we have met internally at staff level to discuss the next phase for Economic Development Subcommittee's contract with EPS Group so that we can get some additional renderings done of the entryway of the prospective Old Home Manor Industrial Park, as well as an extended scope on the traffic impact analysis. More recently, last week, we had a technical review meeting for Century Ranch Phase 1, 126 one-acre lots located just south of Perkinsville Road and east of the Peavine Trail. It's a Mr. Fletcher property. Its next steps would be to go into preliminary plat, so you would see that on a future agenda. It is intended to hook up to city, town water and sewer.
Oh, wow.
And we had a small manufacturer come in that was looking to relocate to Chino Valley. It would be an
Hopefully we
upstart
sign
business.
that guy up.
I'm trying. We're trying to figure out where he can blow stuff up without making too much of a mess with the neighbors. So we're working on those items, and we expect to continue to have some busy schedules or agendas in the very near future, as you've seen some items on study schedule or study sessions, as well as several items that are not on the study sessions that will be coming forward in April and May. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll be moving forward to item 6, the public hearing portion for some items here. We'll start with item 6A, consideration of possible action regarding a request for a zone change for approximately 2 acres of real property generally located 960 feet south of the southeast corner of East Road 5 North and State Route 89 at 3795 North State Route 89 from CL Commercial Light Zoning District to CH Commercial Heavy Zoning District. Alex?
Good evening, Chair Commissioners. Just before we initiate, last commission hearing, Jason presented what we're going to be including now in the staff reports, which are the zoning exhibit. Sorry. For this specific staff report, there was an error. And just to indicate that the zoning exhibit should state rezoning from commercial light to commercial heavy, not agriculture residential to single-family residential 1 acre minimum.
Okay.
So the one that's up here is the one that's going to replace the one that's currently in the staff report.
All right, did everybody understand that? Okay.
So these zoning exhibits are going to be attached to the ordinance. Once council approves the zone change, this is going to be the zoning exhibit that's going to be attached to the zone change, or to the ordinance, sorry. So this is actually an application that's before you that was initiated by staff. This property has currently has a commercial light zoning district, and there's been a conflict with the renewal of a business license and the current type of business is being conducted there. So staff recommended that the property owner apply for a zone change in order for the current business to be in conformance with the zone change. So this property is located 960 feet south of the southeast corner of East Road 5 North and State Route 89 at 3795 North State Route 89. The property is accessed through State Route 89, and as you see here, here's the driveway. So it'll be accessed through here. The property is 2 acres. It has a zoning of commercial light. Has a land use designation through the general plan. Has a commercial multifamily residential. Currently on the property, there are 5 steel buildings, and it is currently being used for manufacturing. Actually, the building in the back is used for manufacturing. The 3 buildings in the front are currently vacant. Surrounding zoning of the property, as you see, is made up of commercial heavy and commercial light districts surrounding it, an exception to the multifamily residential / mobile home park parcel to the southeast, which is currently vacant. As stated before, this application came about a business license, and we cannot renew a business license because of the zoning. The commercial light zoning does not allow the manufacturing use that was the business license was being renewed for. In the past, other uses that have been in the property, or historically this property has been used for heavy uses. In the past, it has been used as a cabinet manufacturing, an upholstery shop, and auto repair and services. All these are commercial heavy uses, and historically it has been used for commercial heavy uses. The current property owner that is there, Toro Manufacturing, has been on site for 10 years as well. So again, staff is recommending that the Planning and Zoning Commission forward a recommendation of approval for parcel 30604-019H from commercial light to commercial heavy, in order for the current commercial use to be in conformance with the zoning. The applicant is here. If the chair of the commission have any questions for them or myself.
Anybody have any questions for Alex while he's up at the podium?
Just a general question. Alex, what type of manufacturing?
From my understanding, they create parts for airplanes, small parts, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Would the owner like to come up and speak? You step up to the podium, if you'd please state your name, we'd appreciate it for the record.
My name is Robert Parsons. On this property that was purchased several years ago, Tony, who owns a machine shop who makes the light aircraft parts, has had a license from the city for years. And suddenly he went down there this year and they said, "Oh, no, you're not zoned right." So we paid our $400 or whatever it was and applied to rezone it. And we would like to be able to sell a small number of automobiles, have storage, have a machine shop, have a fabrication and welding shop, and then any little thing that comes up. And we have 12 storage buildings in back we'd like to rent. So it's a fairly simple request, and we appreciate your concern.
Okay, anybody have any questions for the owner? Thank you, sir. Anybody have any questions or concerns? Okay, then I would entertain a motion. Oh, excuse me. Is there any public here that would like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll move past that. I would entertain a motion.
Commissioner, I move to recommend approval to Town Council of this request to rezone approximately 2 acres of real property located 960 feet south of the southeast corner of East Road 5 North and State Route 89 at 3795 North State Route 89, Chino Valley, Arizona, 86323 from CL Commercial Light to CH Commercial Heavy.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 6B, consideration of possible action regarding a request for a zone change for approximately 5 acres of real property generally located west of the southwest corner of West Road 1 South and South Road 1 West at 584 South Road 1 West from AR5 Agricultural Residential 5 Acre Minimum Zoning District to SR1 Single Family Residential 1 Acre Minimum Zoning. Alex?
Chair Commission, before you have an application from North Blue. Applicant is requesting a zone change from agriculture residential 5 acre minimum to single family residential 1 acre minimum. The property is currently located approximately 912 feet west of the southwest corner of West Road 1 South and South Road 1 West at 584 South Road 1 West. The property is accessed through West Road 1 South. It is currently vacant, and it has a land use designation of medium density residential. The current zoning the proposed zoning will be in conformance with the general plan land use designation as well. As you see here in the zoning map, the surrounding zoning on the property are agricultural residential 5 acre minimum to the north and the south. A little bit further to the northeast, there's single family residential 1 acre minimum, which is what he's requesting. Also to the east is single family residential. To the west, single family residential 2.5 acre minimum, and northwest, single family residential 1 acre minimum. So the request zone change is will support the zoning to the northwest, to the east, and to the northeast. So it'll be a transitional zoning. It'll go from a low density residential to a medium density residential, which is what we see here and here and here. The applicant is requesting a zone change in order for him to go forward and do a lot split on this property. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on site on March 12, 2018. On that meeting, 3 surrounding property owners attended that meeting. The property owners supported the zone change. One of them had concerns that because he was going to be hooking up to town water and sewer along West Road 1 South, that they would be forced to also hook up to water and sewer, town water and sewer. The applicant assured them that that was not the case because they already have a water and septic. Only new properties that are being developed and have utilities abutting the street will be hooked up to town water and sewer. The property owners were also pleased to know that the property owner would be putting a deed restriction on the 3 future properties for site-built homes only. So they were happy about that. As you see here, here's a conceptual plan of how the property owner is planning to go forward once he gets his zone change. If he gets his zone change, he's going to be splitting this into 3 separate parcels. 2 of them are going to reflect the 1 acre, 1 acre, and the other one is going to reflect 3 acres. He's going to have to create a 50-foot easement going along both property abutting West Road 1 South and the town, and he's going to have to go through the town process for that, meaning that he's going to have to sign legal paperwork of a cross-access easement and a perpetual offer of dedication to the town. Staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission forward to Town Council a recommendation of approval from agriculture residential 5-acre minimum to single-family residential 1-acre minimum. The applicant is here. If the Chair and Commission have any questions of him or myself.
Thank you, Alex. Anybody have questions for Alex while he's there?
I just have one question that may be unrelated, it's somewhat related. Just for my own edification, that loop that's on the property, what was that once upon a time?
Racetrack.
Was it a racetrack?
I'm
just
not
curious.
exactly sure. That maybe the property owner can.
It's a training
Alright.
track. It's a training track. You can see the access, the
Okay,
level.
no, I was just
around
wondering what that
corners and
was.
stuff.
Alex, I take it there's already sewer and water lines in West Road 1 South that front this property?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, does the, who owns the property to the south of this, directly to the south? This isn't a split to this, that's correct, where you have the arrow?
No, as you see here in the zoning map, you can see that this is one property
Okay.
where the red line is at, and then this is another property, which takes up this acreage right here.
Another question I have, Alex, is the easement. That's just that is not going to be a city street in the future, correct?
No, as we stated before, all applicants that create a lot split that don't have legal access to a road are created with an easement. As we spoke before, the town is having them sign what is called a perpetual offer of dedication, meaning that they're dedicating it to the town, but the town is going to take ownership of it if they ever need it.
If the town wants it, that
If
is?
they ever need it, yeah, and with that legal document, they can take ownership of it. In this case, I don't believe that's going to be the case unless the one to the south gets split in the future and there's future splits further down south.
Well, that's my concern, is that that property owner to the south can split. He's legally allowed to land split it as being presented here. But I don't see why the town should be taking and improving, we can have that
That will be a public works director's decision. He's the
Mhm.
one that's going to decide if they're ever going to need that.
Okay, I understand, except with the town's financial situation in the past extending into the future, I can't see why we're going to be extending our liabilities. But I understand the position that we're taking for that POD. Is that correct, POD? Perpetual offer
Offer
of
dedication,
Okay.
It seems to me that without that, we couldn't bring the city water and sewer in there without maybe issues in the future, so.
Right, this is gonna serve not only as an ingress egress easement, but as a
It's a
utility.
utility
yes,
easement to
as
bring
well,
all
yeah.
of the town infrastructure in
Mhm.
there. Okay. Any other questions? Do we need to have the owner come up and speak to us? Okay, I would call out to anybody in the public if they have any comments to make about this. Seeing no public volunteers, any more discussion? I would entertain a motion, please.
I move to recommend approval to the town council of this request to rezone approximately 5 acres of real property, approximately 912 feet west of the southwest corner of West Road 1 South and South Road 1 West at 584 South Road 1 West from AR5 agriculture to 5 acre minimum to single family residential 1 acre minimum.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. Thank you, Alex. Okay, we'll move forward to item 6C. Consideration of possible action regarding a request to rezone approximately 44 acres of real property generally located on the northeast corner of North Road 1 East and East Perkinsville Road. Actually a real name, how about that? At 1204 East Perkinsville Road from AR5 residential 5 acre minimums to SR 0.16 PAD single family residential 7,000 square foot minimum zoning district with a planned area development overlay zoning district to modify the SR 0.16 zoning district development standards. Jason?
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. This item should appear somewhat familiar to you. We had brought it before you as a study session item so that you could get a good head start on your review of the documents associated with the application. And in that discussion, a few of the commissioners commented that they'd like to have a bit more details on related to open space, what amenities would be provided, what was the plan for the wall plan, whether it's theme walls or construction type walls throughout. So those items have actually been provided by the applicant and included in your report and in this presentation. But for the public that wasn't there, and as a refresher, we'll go ahead and do the full presentation here on the PowerPoint. The property, again, is just over 40 acres, hence the name Perkinsville Road 40, at the northeast corner of North Road 1 East and East Perkinsville Road. It's directly to the north side of the Town of Chino Valley Community Center and Park, where the ball fields are and the aquatic center is. And it's, as you know, the SR 89 is just due west of here. You can get a kind of good aerial perspective of the property. There are some existing buildings on it. I think originally the building was intended to be an MMJ, medical marijuana facility a long time ago. At least that's what it was initially purchased for. However, those plans have since changed, and the applicant is looking to entitle the property for residential development, 159 lots on approximately 140 acres, roughly around 4 units per acre, 7,000 square foot lots. Chino Meadows, that was zoned and platted in Yavapai County in the late 1960s, early 70s, has approximately the same size lots, just about a quarter mile to the east and the south. So the specific request is for the SRO.16 zoning district with the planned area development overlay. The intention is to modify a couple of the underlying development standards related to setbacks and lot coverage. In return for those sorts of concessions, if you will, or those sorts of considerations, the applicant provides additional documents they would normally have to do, such as open space plans, the community wall plan, a list of amenities, and those are the sorts of kind of barter and trade you do when you look at modifying development standards. And another reason to consider development standards that are modified is to really accommodate more contemporary residential development with what builders are doing now. And in my experience with many builders, the development standards that are proposed as part of the planned area development are reasonable and in keeping with nearly all other residential development of this lot size. We have the conceptual site plan here, otherwise known as the development plan. This would be tied to the zoning ordinance, so what you see up here is really what you would get. They have the typical lot fit diagram in the top right-hand corner, so although we don't know what the in-builder homes will look like right now, these are the parameters for which they could build a home on the lot, and that's tied to the zoning ordinance. We work specifically with the applicant. The attorney representative is here tonight representing the property owner, who I believe is out of state. What you can see is we really wanted to provide open space in a useful fashion and in a visually appealing fashion. For example, if you look at both entrances, one off Road 1 East and Perkinsville Road, when you pull into your development, you don't pull into the front of two lots facing at you, which you see in a lot of developments. Instead, they purposely oriented the open space that you always pull into your community and see open space first. It's also centralized, so you don't have one home walking 3 times as far to get to their park as another home. So they're going to provide, the larger park is in the very dead center of the development, where they'll have like a tot lot and a ramada, which have been itemized in a different exhibit I'll show you in a moment. And then they have an open space corridor that basically feeds all of the homes and their residents. They could go, of course, take the street network if they want to ride their bike that way, or they could continue just through the open space corridor, and then they're directly across the street from the very large city park or town park right there. As I stated before, the overlay gives them the opportunity to modify development standards in return for other items that they've provided. And it will facilitate development at a density that's consistent with the surrounding area. I know we don't see a lot of applications for the smaller lot developments as we did in the 2006-2007 range. But since the time that the 2006 zoning ordinance was adopted, the general plan was updated in just 2014, which calls very specifically for a diverse mix of housing types and densities throughout the town, especially those related to the community core or SR 89 corridor, which this is primarily located near. We're not talking like, 4 north and 4 west or anything really far out in the country. This is much closer to the centralized corridor of the town, and where we would anticipate seeing higher densities to accommodate workforce housing, perhaps to even support development of Old Home Manor, so that we have places for those people that would eventually work in that industrial park to live. When I say workforce housing, I'm just saying it would be likely to be somewhat more affordable than purchasing a home on a full acre or larger, which is not really where you would anticipate your young workers, starting out as. So through the process and through the neighborhood process and staff meetings, we've worked with the applicant to kind of work on that message, because we do need it. Like I said, I'm on the Economic Development Subcommittee, and we talk about needing workforce housing. We have a severe lack of that in the town of Chino Valley. These are the exact development standards proposed by the applicant. They modify the setback off of Perkinsville. The reason we're able to modify that setback is because, as you will note in the site plan, that the lots are actually flipped and they back to it. So there's a landscape tract, and then there's a wall, and then there's a home. The 50-foot setback more clearly applies to homes that would actually be flipped and fronting on Perkinsville Road. So that's why, because this is a planetary development and the homes are more focused inward, we would support that deviation there. And then we have modified development standards off of Road 3 North. We're not even certain that that road will ever go through. We can ask for the dedication if we need it, but it doesn't currently go anywhere. It just happens to align with our street network there. So we have it in our back pocket if our public works director chooses to take it. But then we at least still have some landscaping up there, even if it's never built. The minimum front yard setbacks, right now, we require 25 feet, which is quite large, actually, for a 7,000 square foot lot. I know it sounds funny, but on acres, 25 feet's not that much, but on 7,000 square feet, it really pushes the home back. 15 feet to livable, 20 feet to garage is a very, very typical contemporary residential development standard for new home development. Side yard setbacks, they're proposing 5 and 10. Again, this is very typical. The 10 and 10 setbacks on the smaller lots are I would say atypical, maybe from a long time ago, and almost every time these development standards exist in a code, the builders come in and ask for the change, and almost every council I've known has granted it as it's reasonable. We did push back. They initially wanted 5 and 5, and we felt that was too tight. So, because then the houses would all be 10 feet apart, all in a row. So this at least gives you some staggered. Some places they could be 10, other places they could be upwards of 20. It'll provide some movement and interest on the streetscape. In exchange for those development standards, I'll show you the next several exhibits they've provided to show meaningful open space, an activity center for the residents, and the treatment of walls throughout so that you have decorative walls in the most visible places and then regular walls elsewhere. This is the conceptual landscape plan that more clearly details the turf and tree lined areas on both entrances, and then you can see the sidewalk or trail corridor running through the development all the way to the north side, and then you can see the open space in the middle. At the study session, I was asking we get more details on that to kind of tie them to it. It was very conceptual, and they obliged. So they provided a conceptual perimeter wall plan. This will show you where we're going to have regular block walls, which is typical when you side to existing uses that aren't really impacted, such as the grow facility or vacant large lot property. And then along the street frontages, which will be more visible by passersby and drivers and pedestrians alike, we have the more articulated decorative perimeter wall. And those are detailed here. Now, since this isn't the end developer likely, they may ultimately develop the property, but their intention is to just put the rezoning in place and to help foster development of it, perhaps through a builder. We did provide a condition of approval should you support this case that would give myself a little discretion when the real builder comes in, that if we need to wiggle some things around, we won't have to go through the PED amendment process. But at least it locks in the intent of the P&Z Commission and the council that we have an expectation for this certain list of amenities, and we more or less want to see it. But I did put some discretion in there so it doesn't, one small change won't trigger a 4-month process. But this exhibit here shows you the quality that they're intending to build, and that's exactly what we would look through for in the preliminary plat and final plat process, are facilities that look just like this, as we would be referencing the ordinance when we do the plat. The project will connect to town sewer and water, which would add 159 customers to our facilities and help expand our network for utility services here. The Public Works Director, aka town manager, or town engineer, not manager, will coordinate the dedication of all necessary right-of-way along with her respective improvements at the time that they so see fit, and that condition will be added to the ordinance that would go to council. So our staff recommendation is listed above. The applicant has reviewed it. They provided some language, and then staff took some time to massage it a bit, but it should reflect the discussion that we had at the study session, that the development shall be in general conformance with the conceptual site plan, perimeter wall plans, and landscape plan as approved or modified by the town's development services director, with specific regard to the following: location of pedestrian multi-use trail providing connectivity to Perkinsville Road, perimeter landscaping along Perkinsville Road and Road 1 East, and the location of park, including that 2 picnic tables, 1 tot lot, and 1 ramada shall be provided. Again, if something tweaks or changes and the builder wants to throw in a splash pad or do anything else, we can do that without coming back. But the intention is there to provide amenities for your peace of mind. So with that, we are recommending approval subject to that condition. And I'm happy to answer questions, as well as Lindsay Shuby, the attorney representative, is here as well.
Anybody have questions?
I do. Is the sidewalk going to be required along Perkinsville Road?
Commissioner Bacon, that's correct. We have adopted street sections in the UDO for these major roadway corridors, and they do require sidewalks.
Thank you.
A question about the walls. Is the city seeing a trend? Do you foresee something in the vision for the future where developments such as this will always call for a 6-foot cement wall?
Commissioner Geary, it's very typical for the smaller lot products to provide at least a 6-foot fence or wall. In this case, block walls are predominant. We don't see the walls as much when we get into the acre lot subdivisions. Some provide it, like Appaloosa did. Others, like Molly Ray, did not. Sometimes they'll just wall in the piece that they want to use, and then they'll just fence the rest. But with this, doing a planned area development, we think that the block walls provide privacy and security to the smaller lots.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Not a question, but just as a note to Jason and staff, this is an excellent package. And I think the study session led to this being presented the way it is, and it covers it. And I noticed the attorney was here at the study session and is here now, and well done.
Thank you, Commissioner Armstrong.
You're here.
Yes.
I can tell you did good because he's not climbing all over the top of you about his park.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so any more questions for Jason? Would the owner's representative like to come up and speak?
Chairman, Commissioners, Lindsay Shuby. I'm with the law firm of Gamage and Burnham, 2 North Central in Phoenix, Arizona. So it's been a pleasure driving up here for the neighborhood meeting, the study session. You gave us homework. I was here taking notes, the study session. It's been a pleasure working with your staff. They're very good, very thorough. They put us through the ringer on this, but I think we've got a fabulous plan. It is not our intent to develop the property ourselves, although we may do a joint venture or something like that. But we've always heard a quality development, more workforce housing, different development types and different size lots, and so that's what we're here to present to you. And we look forward to working with the developer that ultimately develops the project.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We'll open the public portion of this meeting for any comments for this item only. Please step up to the podium and you have, state your name and then you have 3 minutes to speak.
My name is Tina Metters. I'll be your new commissioner after I get all the swearing-ins and stuff. Since this accesses their direct driveway coming into the park, is there any contingency for a sidewalk to go through there for kids that are going to be running over the street and not going up to the corner?
I don't know that we've addressed that. I'm pretty sure that we could work something out with that, Jason.
Thank you, Chair. The sidewalks that would be required would be the typical sidewalk on the north side of Perkinsville Road and then Road 1 East. As far as, were you referring to
So
a
I think
direct
she might be
crossing?
referring to a crosswalk.
A
somewhere.
crosswalk. I believe that with the Public Works Director, we can discuss that. That would require enhanced signage. I don't know if it would require pedestrian crosswalk lighting, the flashing one if they sense a pedestrian. Those are kind of expensive, but I understand the safety aspect, especially if this is going to have young families and children. I will relay that to the Public Works Director.
That would be good because that is a concern with the park being across the street. That's going to be a well-traveled avenue there.
Absolutely.
This property is the parking lot for the 4th of July celebration, so we need to let these residents know that there's gonna be a lot of cars around.
Yep, yes, there will be.
Chair and Commissioner Armstrong, my understanding is that it's still available as a parking lot for this coming celebration, but we'll see in the future if it still will be.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
Yes.
Please state your name for the record.
My name's Gary A. DeYoung, and I live at 950 East Adams Drive, very close to the proposed project, and I've owned and lived at that property for 22 years. And I cannot believe the town of Chino Valley is even considering rezoning property to 0.16 acre. Are we serious? Do we want more meadows? Don't we have enough of a problem with the meadows? Come on. Really? This is a 1 acre town. When I moved here 22 years ago, this was all horse property. Do we want to be Prescott Valley? It sounds to me, from what I'm seeing, this is already a done deal with you people. But I am opposed to it. I'm very disappointed in the town of Chino Valley. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I have a question for Jason. Jason, does this meet the requirements of the general plan as adopted by the town council?
Commissioner Bacon, yes, we've reviewed the general plan and its conformance with this project. As I noted before, I don't believe that the sort of density associated with this housing project would be suitable throughout the entire town of Chino Valley, but there are specific areas that are allocated in the general plan for housing diversity and density, and this meets the criteria for that.
Do you think the proximity of the community center park also warrants a higher density?
And certainly, Chair and Commissioner Bacon, when we look at the position of the project and its surrounding land uses, when you have such a large regional park and you're able to see more users get to benefit from that park directly across the street rather than, say, ultra-low density housing where you might just have a handful of people living there, you're putting people next to amenities, and that's generally good planning practice.
Any other questions?
Yeah, it's not necessarily a question as much as a thought. As young families, we hope, will come to the area and settle into these nice new homes. I see many a family walking their children over to the early childhood territorial public school site. and I'm wondering to what extent we are responsible for making sure that the families have a safe trip to school.
Commissioner Geary, in regards to this specific project, the owner and future developer will be responsible for their adjacent half-street improvements, which is typical of state statute requirements, and they pass down universally throughout the state and generally across the country. Anything beyond that would really be the responsibility of the town or prospective developers of adjacent right-of-ways or streets in that area. Looking at roadway improvements and sidewalk improvements, we tend to cluster them near these sorts of places where you start to get land use intensities up. You got the community park, things, like stuff that would get in our capital improvement plan in the future, and that's something that Frank Marbury will be looking at. So to the degree that we owe them safe passage, this project would provide its required improvements to do that. Beyond that, it would be on the town.
Super, thank you.
I snuck in.
And Mr. Marbury's here if you'd like to have him continue on with that.
Hi, Frank Marbury, Public Works Director. For those that don't know me, I snuck in a little late. I apologize for being late, but I wanted to try and come into this meeting. A little bit about some of the crosswalks and things like that. As we move through the development of projects like this and get more technical in the lower level in my world into the engineering documents, the traffic impact analysis and the actual engineering documents should look at some of the issues of this, and we'll kind of ferret that out is one of my terms, and look through that as we go on. And as Public Works and for the town, as traffic increases in general, we can look at the intersection of these roads and see what we need to do for crosswalk treatments on an ongoing basis. Usually through our roads committee is one way we flush that out, and they ask my opinion as the town engineer and provide recommendations too as we go on. So I think there will be a lot of technical scrutiny of these as we move on through this, if that helps.
It does. I think that probably us expressing a concern for that sort of thing is just so you specifically will be aware of that, and then maybe you can put something into the project that maybe would have not, I won't say slipped through.
Might have gotten missed.
The concern is there, and we hear a lot here in the zoning meetings about safety and children and walking up and down the road, so it's always in the forefront of our
Yeah,
thinking.
especially with this higher density and in the location with the amenities, and even our 2007 transportation study shows some pathways in this area to connect the Peavine Trail to the community center and the schools and in that area. So I'll make sure the engineers look at all of that as part of their reporting and analysis.
That would be great. Thank you. Okay, so any further public comment? Please step to the podium, state your name, which I think you've been here before.
On occasion.
Depends upon what side of the dais you're talking about. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Ron Romley. I'm a resident of Chino Valley. We're getting more and more of these high-density subdivisions, and I'm the chairman of the board and the founder of Yavapai Regional Transit. We're forgetting about people that need some sort of transportation when we build these developments like this. How wide are the streets? 50 feet? All of them? Internal streets?
Sorry, let me address that, Chair. The right-of-way is 50 feet. I believe the paving section's 32, and there'll be attached sidewalks internal to the development.
The thing I was looking at was that we're doing about 10,000 trips, passenger trips this year, of which 70-some% are here in Chino Valley. I want to make sure that the transit is thought about. What we'd really like to see, I really don't want to go inside the subdivision itself, if at all possible. Could you bring up the sheet, whether it's landscaping or the other one, so we can see the whole thing? There you go. Okay. Because I don't really feel that would serve a purpose for us to take a bus inside of that. But if we, on say 1 East, because we do come down Perkinsville every hour, and we make a right-hand turn and go on 1 East. So if consideration could be made to where we could have a bus pullout, either on Perkinsville or 1 East, preferable 1 East, to where we wouldn't have to go inside, but the residents that live there could walk over to the bus stop on 1 East, and we could safely pick up people and take them to where they have to go. So I apologize because I'm this late in getting into this program, but this is the reason I mainly came, was for this today. But because there are going to be some people over there that are not going to be able to drive, and they're elderly people. Occasionally, if we have to divert to go in and pick them up at their house, we can do that. But I don't want to make a route going through this thing. So anyway, if you could consider that before the final decision is made to approve it as shown. I think it looks like right there on either side, probably preferably on the far side or the north side of the entrance off of 1 East, if we could just have a pullout built there to where we could bring the bus in, load the passengers up, and then continue on our route. It would be much appreciated.
Okay, and just for your information, on the inside of the subdivision, all of the radiuses are all going to be approved by the fire department, so there'll be room for your vehicles to go in there.
Well, the problem that we end up with is when they park on the street, and we got two different, and you said children and everything else, there's going to be probably a mix of people, older people as well as the children, and we don't want to, we don't like going in Country West because the streets are so narrow. Right. I don't know if you're going to have speed bumps or not in there to slow the traffic down, but I would much prefer to have it on the outside, and occasionally if we have to go in, we can do that. That's not a problem. But just the consideration of the older people and the family people that don't have but one car, and if the husband's using it for work and the wife's got the kids at home and wants to go to Prescott or wants to go to someplace in Chino, they have a safe access to be able to get on the bus and go. We don't have 40-foot long buses. We've got short buses because of we have to go into places like that. So your consideration would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. I have a possible idea to address some of this. The city park is across the street. Is there a way the town could create an area there for a bus turnout?
Chair Merritt, I spoke with Frank briefly and also the applicant representative. We could look at a good location for a pullout. A pullout's not an issue this is typical transit considerations in most towns and cities. We don't really have a formally adopted transit plan with required stops throughout, X number of feet from the corner, things like that. But we could work through a solution with the developer. If you wanted to take it so far as to add another condition, you could suggest that the developer shall explore or should look to work with the town's public works director to find an appropriate location for loading and unloading of a transit vehicle.
For public transport.
For public or private transport too. You're never certain maybe if they have private transport companies as well that would use it.
I appreciate the developer's concern there. Any other
Jason,
comments from the public? Just one second. No other comments from the public, then I'm going to close that portion of the meeting. Jason, I think we have some other questions for you, though.
All right.
It just occurred to me. When I think of arterial, I think of 100-foot right-of-way, but this is only 50 feet. We have a right-of-way of only 50 feet.
Commissioner Bacon, I'll clarify. When I was speaking of that, I was speaking of the interior streets of the residential neighborhood, which would be a local street. It'd be a 50-foot right-of-way. I believe it's 32 feet of paving. There's curb and then attached sidewalk. On Perkinsville Road, through this recommendation and through the ultimate ordinance, we will add exact right-of-way dedication widths per our town's adopted standards for Perkinsville and Road 1 East and Road 3 North.
Which would be how wide?
I have them in here.
The reason I'm asking is I think the community college is located further down the road with their area, correct, in development, as well as proposed industrial. And so we're going to need in the future more than 2 lanes So we're looking at a 4-lane for an arterial, as I consider it 4 lanes. So that would mean at least a minimum 80 to 100 foot right of way along Perkinsville. So will we have that in the future?
Commissioner Bacon, EPS Group, the consultant that's been hired for Old Home Manor, is doing a regional traffic impact analysis that will tell us how many lanes we need, and we will coordinate the dedication widths with Frank Marbury in regards to what we need for the north side, particularly for Perkinsville. I think the understood impact is that we're likely going to need 2 lanes both direction once all this stuff builds out. So
Okay.
we'll make sure we have enough right away for that.
So even though there's 50 feet for Perkinsville right now, that could be expanded in the future and would impact this development.
Commissioner Bacon, I'll let Frank address the width. I don't remember the exact width.
Yeah, I think, and maybe to correct a little bit, I think the interior street, the actual pavement width, maybe 24 feet is our residential standard. Yeah, a lot of communities it's 32, so you working a lot. So, but the right-of-way width and arterials for the town, the standard is 100 feet for the right-of-way width, and we'd probably be looking for something similar to that, be it 2 lanes or 4 lanes. Traffic-wise, since it was brought up, maybe in relation to this, how it relates to Old Home Manor, we're still looking at that with Old Home Manor, whether or not Perkinsville or Road 4 would be the main corridor in there. There's the other issue with Road 4 that we just put in a 16-barrel culvert to accommodate the flood flows over that road, and Perkinsville has a 2-barrel culvert, so a little bit of a difference there. But that's maybe another issue. I don't know how it relates to this development, but technically, I think the right-of-way widths are 100 feet for arterials, regardless of 2-lane or 4-lane.
Another thing that just occurred to me
Is the
tonight
standard, but I
is,
think PAD allows some leeway on that. Okay, you didn't have any deviation, so I think we're okay there.
Okay. Now for the interior, will there be parking be allowed at least on one side of the street?
I don't know if we've gotten to that level of detail yet. So even in Appaloosa, where it's 24 feet of pavement, I think they allow parking.
Okay.
So it would probably be similar streets to, even though Appaloosa's bigger lots.
All right.
Oh, I'm hearing rumbling, so don't quote me on that. But we do have our current code, and I don't know of any changes to that.
Okay.
That we have based on density. There's some changes with sidewalks once you get over 1 acre lots, but.
Well, right now, we're looking at the overall rezoning. We're not looking at the specific plat, so I
Right.
just wanted to raise the question.
Okay.
Anybody have any other comments or questions? Okay, just one brief comment. This has been before us as a study session. It's also been advertised in the paper and had numerous opportunities for the public to speak for or against this project. And we haven't heard any negative comments until this evening. So we will just leave it at that and say that you guys have done a great job with this new way of organizing things, which we greatly appreciate as the commission. Thank you. Okay, so any other discussion? I would entertain a motion.
I have a question, just before we entertain a motion. Did we want to consider, the developer consider a pullout of some type, working with the Public Works or the,
That would be part of the discussion of the motion. And if somebody wants to make that as part of the motion now, we can discuss that when it comes time to discuss the motion before we vote on it. So your concern is valid, it's just we have opportunities there. So, and if you would like to make the motion, you could put that in there, or we'll talk about it after the motion is made.
I'm a new guy, I'll read the long one.
Okay. So anybody gonna make a motion?
I'll do it for you.
Okay, thank you.
I move to recommend approval to Town Council of this request to rezone approximately 44.3 acres of real property located northeast corner of East Perkinsville Road and North Road 1 East intersection at 1204 East Perkinsville Road from the current zoning district of AR5 agricultural residential 5-acre minimum to SR .16 single family residential 7,000 square foot minimum acre lot or lot acre with a PAD planned area development overlay with the following conditions. Number 1, development shall be in general conformance with conceptual site plan, perimeter wall plans, landscape plan, and approved or modified by the town's representative or town's development services director with specific regard to the following. A, location of pedestrian multi-use trail providing connectivity to Perkinsville Road. B, perimeter landscaping along Perkinsville Road to Road 1 East. And C, location of park including that 2 picnic tables, 1 tot lot, and 1 ramada shall be provided. And I guess it's C, the developer shall work or consult with the public works director or town's development director in establishing a viable pullout for future transportation. I don't know if I said that last part right, but I scribbled something there.
You did good.
Did a good job.
I read the line.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Now we can discuss.
I'm just questioning the pullout. I'm speaking off the cuff here. Is that whether it be more appropriate by the park where people would come to the park? And if they're taking the transit, I would think they'd be going from their place, its workforce, to wherever they're going. So that might be the appropriate place as well. But the question is if they're leaving or coming, that pullout has to be on one or both sides of the street. They can't go against the traffic. So I'm not sure what the best place is for that pullout.
I guess for a comment would be that let's let the town engineer
That's a good
work
question.
that out with
Yes.
the developer.
One going on that side,
Yes.
coming home, yeah.
Do we agree with that?
And Chair, if I may, I think it's clear to staff, plus with the language added in there that the Public Works Director more or less would direct it where it's best suited. We'll study the issue for sure and put it in the right spot.
Okay, are we satisfied with the wordage that covers that portion of it?
I believe that we're satisfied with the verbiage. It also leaves it open to if it happens to be on Perkinsville Road instead of 1 Road East, so we didn't specify either one, which is probably better.
Yeah, I think the town engineer needs some discretion there.
Thank you, Chair, and we'll be working through that. The condition can be added at the zoning ordinance level, and then the details can be identified at the preliminary plat level, which would be the next step.
Okay, so are we satisfied with the motion?
Could you
We have a
repeat? That would
second.
be number D, subsection D as in David?
Yeah, you mentioned C, but it should be
Yeah,
subsection D.
the last one would be subsection D.
Okay, so we're good with that?
Yeah, just as a point, I understand there's no developer, builder, buyer, anything yet for this piece of property? They're just asking for the zone change?
Commissioner Armstrong, that's correct. The builder may be interested in a joint development or joint venture development with the builder, but at this time, the owner is not a builder themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion?
I'd just like to make a comment. I'm in favor of this project, but generally speaking, if we get more projects like this down the line without a builder, I would say we need to have something in hand before we approve any rezonings.
Okay, so I'll make a comment to that. I don't disagree with your thinking, but if we do our job properly, we're gonna anchor this enough so that a builder that does come in there is gonna have to come and perform as we would if there was a builder there. I mean, that's kind of up to us and you guys as town staff to protect the public interest there. And it's good to anchor this as closely as we can, but we don't have anything except a zoning change request here. And the actual layout and that sort of thing, town staff has got lots of rules to follow with that. So
I
we
concur totally, Mr. Chairman. I'm just saying, based on my past experience, the value of this property rises with the rezoning.
I agree with that.
And when you have that, developers will come to town. If the price is not right, they will go to another section, buy that at a lower price. And what I've seen, and particularly one other major jurisdiction, the rezoning kept on going and going, prices kept on going up, but there was no development. And so I'm just saying, the commission has to be cognizant of that, that's all.
And I agree. If we do our job, we're going to protect against that.
Okay.
That's why you can't retire. Any further discussion? Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Okay, moving forward to item 6D, consideration of possible action regarding request for a conditional use permit for approximately 120 acres of real property located northwest of North Jasper Trail at 4820 East Perkinsville Road to allow a hot mix asphalt plant in the I Industrial Zoning District. Jason.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. We have a conditional use permit, not a rezoning case, but a conditional use permit request.
Did I read that wrong?
Oh, no, I was just kind of refreshing everyone's mind. We're switching a little bit of gears to conditional use permit from the rezoning process. They track virtually the same, but the underlying zoning of industrial remains the same. This is just, there's a list of permitted uses subject to discretionary approval by P&Z and council that could be permitted if you find that the location and context of the site is suitable for the use. Mr. Fletcher's here in attendance as well and can answer questions after I complete the presentation. But you can see here an aerial view of, it's almost like a rock quarry, the gravel facility out here. And Mr. Fletcher's asking for the ability to mix hot asphalt out there. And the property is shown here on North Jasper Trail. You can kind of see over to the right, that's the Haystack subdivision that's out in Yavapai, unincorporated Yavapai County. And you can see his operations there. It's accessed by a gravel improved surface road. Another kind of perspective of the facility. The current land use is mining, crushing hard rock, so it's kind of a rough and tumble use out there already. It's on the very edge of town. You can see it's on the far northeast portion of the town, and then the hot asphalt mix facility would be located per the site plan. You can see they'd come in off North Jasper Trail, take a left into the development. They have the employer parking there, and then the portable asphalt plant would be located just north of that. Mr. Fletcher's identified an economic need in the area with all of the development that's occurring. They believe that this would be a viable business venture, and it's in the right location, in their opinion, located near the quarry where there's already quite a mix of heavy truck uses occurring there. There are several other discretionary approvals that are required, such as from ADEQ for air quality, that they'll have to receive what's called a Class 1 permit. They'll also have water trucks for dust control from the loaders and the trucks. They already have some items permitted, as you can see in the details here. These are for informational purposes only. They can't be legally tied to the conditional use permit, which is our purview is what's allowed in the zoning ordinance. The following list, just to give you an idea of who all's looking at it for the state mining permit, they have to have all 4 of those permits. The reason that I kind of will go off, I wouldn't say off script, but there's not a slide specific to it. The reason why we felt that this particular location could support the hot mix is mixing asphalt is kind of smelly. And so we like to put it in places where it does make sense. And this, we did have some initial concern with the Haystack subdivision, but it's very, very low density population. And it's also to the southeast where the predominant winds are going to the east-northeast across the property. So any of the smells would carry off into state land for many, many miles, and we don't believe it's going to have a negative impact. Furthermore, they had a neighborhood meeting for the site, and there wasn't any known opposition at that time, nor have we received any phone calls or emails in opposition to the case. It has been properly noticed, and I'm not certain, of course, if there's anyone here to speak tonight, but again, the applicant, Mr. Fletcher, is here to, if you want to get into some more of the details of what hot mix means, if you're not sure already, he can certainly go into that with you.
Thank you, Jason. Anybody have any questions for Jason while he's up to bat here? Okay, Mr. Fletcher, would you please come up and kind of give us a brief overview of what a hot mix plant looks like and smells like?
Well, this hot mix
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Jim Fletcher, resident of Chino Valley here. Commissioners, thank you for looking at this with us. It's a portable asphalt plant. We have a rock crushing operation out there now, and have had since '99, I believe. So when the town came to us in 2001 and wanted to annex the property, we showed them what we were doing, and they agreed in the pre-annexation agreement to allow those uses that the county was allowing us. At that time, Carl Tenney was the town manager, and I told him, I said, at some point, we're going to want to put an asphalt plant in. We have a concrete plant at Charter Materials, which is across Perkinsville Road. So we've been in the business for 26 years. So now Chino has grown, I think, to the point, the nearest asphalt plant's 25 miles away. And that is on, which Vulcan has, be east of Prescott Valley. So now we're coming to you asking for the conditional use permit. We think it's warranted at this point.
Anybody have any
Questions?
concerning the plant operation? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I would open the public portion of the meeting for this particular item. Would anybody like to speak? Okay, I'm going to close that portion of the meeting. Do we have any questions for this? Okay, then I would entertain a motion. I'm going to make you do the work.
Commissioner, I was looking to my associates. I talk enough, I think, sometimes.
Your turn.
I move to recommend approval to the town council of this request for conditional use permit for approximately 120 acres of real property located northwest of North Jasper Trail at 4820 East Perkinsville Road to allow a hot mix asphalt plant in the I industrial zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number one, the hot mix facility will be developed in accordance with the exhibits provided by the applicant. 2, applicant will comply with all federal, state, and local regulations. 3, all required permits by state and federal authorities will be completed before the start of the plant.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Well, we got lots of them. Anybody have any comments?
I didn't hear who seconded first, I heard three voices.
That guy.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one comment. I like the conditional use permit. I did not notice that there was a time frame associated with it. Or do we normally not do that?
Chair and Commissioners, I believe if you do not specifically state when it will expire, it could be in perpetuity. There's always the revocation process. If there were to become an issue in the future, we could initiate that. If you'd like to add a time step, uses such as these, it is a portable asphalt plant. I'm not certain. I'm sure Mr. Fletcher would prefer no time step, but if you needed to, you could always state something like 10 years or something like that.
Okay, well, I was thinking, I know it's an investment for Mr. Fletcher to move his operation there, and it's not the intent of the commission to cause undue hardship. But I do think for a conditional use permit, it would be good to put some sort of a limit on it, even if it's 50 years. And now, if I'm looking at this the wrong way, I can stand to be corrected here. But there's only 3 considerations here that are part of the conditional use permit, and I think they cover it well, but I'm just bringing the subject up.
Commissioner Chair, in my past experience with some conditional use permits, we joke that it's the wrecking ball step. Like, in theory, you could come out here and take somebody's business away. If you choose not to renew it, they'd have to leave the premise. Not certain what the monetary investment is of Mr. Fletcher, but when you have such things such as these, I did an air park once where we did a 15-year time step, which gave them a nice long run. And usually, unfortunately, after 15 years, everybody seems to forget that they had it expire, and everyone's in a scramble to get back and get it renewed. But you're welcome to, of course, assign a recommendation to council for 10 or 15 years would probably be my recommendation if you wanted to assign a step. I don't think 5 years would be maybe enough.
No, that would be not a reasonable.
And in 50 years, I mean, that's probably 10 zoning ordinances away. They might not even be pertinent anymore.
I have a question for Jason. So you said there's a revocation process already in place, should the need arise?
In theory, it could be initiated if there was a very, very negative impact on
Yeah,
adjacent
so like the
properties.
city starts encroaching and starts moving further up, it'd be a problem. So the city could pursue that, should there be a need.
I would imagine it with a 10-year stip over time, what you'd do is you'd allow it to expire and not renew it is probably what would happen. In this location, it's so far from existing development in the northeast corner of town, out on the very edge of town. You could look at both options. Those are two options. We'd have to work with legal counsel if you had to revoke it. It's a big process.
I think it's like a two-edged sword in this case because of its location. It's so far out. And he's been there for almost 20 years. I have mixed thoughts on it, just to let the commission know.
Okay, I just wanted to give everybody an opportunity to discuss that. So, we have no time frame. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? All right. Moving forward to item 6E, consideration of possible action regarding request to amend the CUP conditional use permit for approximately 2.82 acres of real property generally located 274 feet north of the northwest corner of West Road 3 North and State Route 89 at 2062 North State Route 89 to allow the installation and replacement of an electronic sign in the commercial light zoning district. Alex.
Chair Commissioners, before you have an application by MB Signs for St. Catherine Labyrinth Church. Its location is 270 feet north of the northwest corner of West Road 3 North and State Route 89. Property is accessed through State Route 89. As you saw in your staff report, that we gave a brief history of the property. And on June 25th of 2013, the applicant went before P&Z into council and received approval for conditional use permit through ordinance number 13-770 for LED message board sign. Here you see the design plan that was approved with a conditional use permit. This sign was located there a few months after that. Currently, that sign is no longer there. There was an accident on the property, and the property owners, because of the damage to the sign, decided to completely remove the sign. A few months ago, the applicant resubmitted a permit for the sign, and he submitted this site plan. As you see, this design plan is is different from the one that was approved by the council a few years ago, and that warranted the applicant to resubmit for a conditional use permit because the old sign was 3 feet from the ground. This sign is the current sign is about 6.5 feet from the ground. So that warranted the applicant to resubmit for a conditional use permit. Some of the differences between the one that was originally approved and the one that is proposed is that the LED sign is somewhat smaller than what was there. It was 32 square feet, and the proposed one is 15 square feet. The sign is going to abide by the development standards set forth by the guidelines set forth by for signs in the UDO. It's going to be located at least 6 feet from the property line, and it's not going to exceed 96 square feet. It is not exceeding the 12 feet in height as well. As other LED signs in that area, there's always issues of the brightness. The sign can be manually adjusted for the dimness of the sign. So if that becomes an issue in the future, where drivers on 89 see that the sign is dimmer than it should, or brighter than it should, the property owner can reduce the brightness of the sign. The staff submitted notifications to property owners within a 300-foot radius that resulted in 14 letters being submitted to surrounding property owners. Staff has not received any comments to date for this application. Staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission forward to Town Council a recommendation of approval for the conditional use permit for the proposed electrical display for St. Catherine Labyrinth Catholic Church, subject to the following conditions. That the electronic sign shall not contain any form of animation and must remain static for at least 8 seconds with a transition time of no greater than 2 seconds. If the town and/or Arizona Department of Transportation, ADOT, develop more stringent requirements for the static and transition time code for electronic signs, the sign that is subject to the use permit shall be modified to comply. Also, that the town receive if the town receives complaints for the community residents of excessive brightness or glare at night, the applicant shall submit sign modification plans to the Development Services Department for review and approval to ensure that the brightness and glare are reduced to satisfactory level. And that the information display in the electrical sign shall be exclusive to activities and events that occur on the premises, which is considered by ADOT an on-premise sign, basically stating that the sign only advertise activities and events that are on the property. If an electrical sign starts advertising events that are not on the property, it's considered an off-premise sign, which is not allowed by ADOT.
Any questions for Alex on this? Thank you, Alex. Do we have a need for the owner to step forward and speak? Okay, so open up this portion of the meeting to the public. Close that portion of the meeting. I do notice that the gentleman that's going to construct the sign is sitting in the audience tonight. Does anybody have any technical questions? You got off easy. All right, so I call for motion.
You guys are looking at me. I guess I'm reading the long one again.
Yeah, you're the new guy.
Yeah. I move to recommend approval to the town council of the request for the conditional use of the permit for the proposed electrical display on parcel 306.14-007E, located approximately 270 feet north of the northwest corner of the West Road 3 North and State Route 89 intersection at 2062 North State Route 89, subject to the following conditions. Number one, the electric sign shall not contain any form of animation and must remain static for at least 8 seconds with a transition time of no greater than 2 seconds. If the town and/or Arizona Department of Transportation develop more stringent requirements for static and transition time codes for electronic signs, the sign that is subject to this use permit shall be modified to comply. Number two, if the town receives complaints from the community residents of excessive brightness or glare at night, the applicant shall submit a sign modification plan to the Development Services Department for review and approval to ensure the brightness and glare are reduced to satisfactory levels. And number three, information displayed on the sign, on the electronic sign, shall be exclusive to activities and events that occur only on the premises in compliance with ADOT regulations. ARS 28-2901 through 28-2915 and AAC R17-3-701, R17-3701.01, and the town's prohibition of off-site commercial signs.
Okay, so we have, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Moving forward to item 7, any non-public hearing action items? Close that portion of the meeting, going to item 8, discussion items. Do we have any of those? Close
Can I-
that.
Could I make a comment? I saw the Olson sign today, specifically. I'm not sure when it went up, but I thought it was very nice looking.
Yeah. I was wondering, are we seeing a trend towards animated signage?
Chair and Commissioner Geary and Bacon.
I'm sorry.
As you can see, I will add for this item, since you guys just voted real quick, that it was our legal counsel's opinion that it needed to come back through the process rather than be approved at the staff level. That's why you did see it. But we are seeing trends towards the electronic message signs, and I feel like we've kind of got our rhythm down with what we find reasonable conditions in which to permit them to protect us from really bright or garish signs. These are very, the ones that the applicant have brought forward, also he did the last one, have been very reasonable. But there are prospects that we could get some extremely bright signs, and so we're just making sure that we manage that from the get-go. Susan.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, so we're going to move to item 9. That's the public comment portion of the meeting. The call to the public is an opportunity for the public to address the commission on any issue within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not on the agenda. Public comment is encouraged. Individuals are limited to speak for 3 minutes. The total time for call to the public may be up to 30 minutes per meeting. The commission action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date, or responding to criticism. So is there anybody in the public that would like to step up and speak? Okay, we'll close that portion of the meeting. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I need a second.
Second.
Anybody wants to discuss it? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, staff, for your help tonight.
Thank you.
Good.
Package. Great package.
Thank you so much.
I don't want to trap you in this. I know.